Modern life sells us a particular kind of story, doesn't it? The bigger house, the next promotion, the car upgrade, the trip somewhere further away, the dinner that makes the Instagram grid, the retirement that finally justifies the 40 years of postponement it took to get there. All of which is, on quiet reflection, mostly nonsense.
The steady path, keep it moving slow. Every step you take is the way you grow. Take the steady path, let the rhythm guide. One step at a time to the other side.
12-year-old boy is standing in a seaside arcade in front of a battered fortune telling machine called Zoltar. Behind the glass, a grinning mechanical head. He feeds it a coin. He makes a wish. He wishes he was big. The next morning, he wakes up in his own bedroom, in his own house, in the body of a 30-year-old man. This is, of course, the film Big, directed by Penny Marshall, 1988. And playing the boy, trapped inside the man, in the role that made his name, Tom Hanks. What follows is a charming American comedy that you almost certainly know better than you realise. The boy, now in an adult body, fakes his way into a job at a toy company, and in no time at all, he's got a corner office, a salary, an apartment with a trampoline and a Pepsi machine, and a girlfriend played by Elizabeth Perkins. He has, by the standards of any 12-year-old anywhere, more or less everything. And the film gently, without ever quite saying it out loud, spends 2 hours demonstrating that almost none of it is as good as the things he already had. The bedroom, the bike, the friend on the next street, the mother shouting up the stairs about dinner. The film ends with him going back, becoming 12 again, going home. That's what we're talking about today, the joy of small things. The slightly embarrassing realization that the life people spend 40 years chasing is very often not as good as the one they already had and forgot to notice. Modern life sells us a particular kind of story, doesn't it? The bigger house, the next promotion, the car upgrade, the trip somewhere further away, the dinner that makes the Instagram grid, the retirement that finally justifies the 40 years of postponement it took to get there. All of which is, on quiet reflection, mostly nonsense. Because the people who actually arrive at the next bigger thing, and I meet a great many of them, professionally speaking, almost never report feeling much different about being alive than they did before. The house is bigger, the dog's the same dog, the marriage is the same marriage. Tuesday afternoon is broadly still Tuesday afternoon. What does seem to make a big difference, and this is the inconvenient bit, are the small things. The morning coffee, drunk slowly. The walk before anybody needs anything from you. The Sunday afternoon nap. Can't wait for that one. The dog at the foot of the bed, or the sofas because ours isn't allowed upstairs. The friend who phones for no reason at all. The conversation in the car where, for once, your son actually tells you about it. And yet, by the testimony of very nearly every well lived life I've ever had the privilege of sitting opposite, these are, in fact, the goal. There's one scene in Big that does, on its own, more philosophical work than most of the self help shelf. The toy shop at FAO Schwartz. The giant electric piano laid across the floor. Tom Hanks and Robert Loggia, the boy and his much older, slightly bewildered boss, playing heart and soul with their feet and then chopsticks in front of a small crowd of strangers who are briefly and entirely having a lovely time. The scene's 2 minutes long, it contains no plot, it advances nothing, and it is by some distance the most remembered thing in the entire film. Because what the piano floor scene actually is, once you strip away the choreography, is a demonstration of how easily joy turns up when nobody has put it on the schedule. A toy, a friend, 2 minutes of nonsense, a crowd of strangers who didn't expect to laugh today. Small doesn't mean cheap. Small doesn't mean unambitious. Small means human sized, the right amount of attention for the actual size of the thing. A piece of toast eaten standing up while scrolling the news on your phone is not, in any meaningful sense, breakfast. A piece of toast eaten sitting down with proper butter, maybe it's with nice jam or marmite or lemon curd, and a proper cup of tea while looking out the window for 10 minutes is. The toast is the same toast. What changed was the size of the moment you gave it. Let's talk about another film. A man is sitting in a hospital ward and has been for 30 years, frozen inside his own body, statue still, unreachable. The staff feed him, wash him, move him, and have long since stopped expecting anything back. Then a doctor, against all advice, tries an experimental drug, and the man wakes up. This is the film Awakenings, 1990. Penny Marshall again, 2 years after Big. Robert De Niro as Leonard, and Robin Williams as the Doctor. Same director, same argument, just none of the jokes. And here's the thing. When he wakes, he doesn't ask for money. He doesn't ask for status or a car or a corner office or a bigger version of anything. He wants to walk down a street. He wants to feel the rain on his face. He wants to read a newspaper. He wants to look at a woman and be looked at. That's the entire wish list. 30 years in the dark, and the wish list is a street, some rain, a newspaper, and a woman's hand across a table. And then, and this is the part that stays with you at 2 in the morning, it starts to slip away again. It's super sad. The body begins to fail. Leonard knows it's going, and what he tries desperately to do with a voice and a body that are betraying him by the minute is to tell the doctors something before he loses the ability to say it. That the ordinary things, the things everybody else walks straight past, are the whole of it. That people who have them don't notice them. That the gift has been handed out quite freely to everybody in the building, and almost nobody has bothered to unwrap it. Here's what I find remarkable. In Big, a boy has to become 30 to learn it. In Awakenings, a man has to lose 30 years to learn it. Same director, same lesson, two entirely different routes to the same small, unglamorous door. And you and I are being offered the shortcut for free on a Tuesday. The Stoics had a rather unfashionable way, or unfashionable view of the bigger, better, more programme. Marcus Aurelius, running an empire with a war, a court, a wife, and a deeply disappointing son, wrote a single line in his Meditations that 2,000 years on still puts most of the modern wellness industry out of business in under 15 words. He says this: "Very little is needed to make a happy life. It is all within yourself, in your way of thinking." He wasn't saying give it all up, and he wasn't saying live in a cave and eat gruel. He was saying quite practically, with one eye on the ledger of his own extremely busy day, that the equipment list for a contented life is very much shorter than the world keeps insisting. And Epictetus, born a slave, lame in one leg, who owned almost nothing his entire life and appears to have been the happiest man in the story, put it more bluntly: wealth consists not in having great possessions, but in having few wants. It's not a poverty argument, it's an arithmetic one. There are two ways to close the gap between what you have and what you want, and the entire modern economy is built on the assumption that you will only ever attempt one of them. Modern psychology has, with a great deal of expensive equipment and an enormous amount of regression analysis, arrived at exactly the same conclusion the Stoics reached using a quill and a candle. It's called hedonic adaptation. Anything you acquire, like a house, a car, a job, a salary, produces a temporary lift in happiness, which then decays, almost without exception, back down to your baseline within 6 to 12 months. The new becomes the normal. The car's just the car, house is just a house, the salary is just what you get paid. Which is why the people who spend a lifetime chasing the next bigger thing tend, somewhere around their late 50s, to look rather tired and to be unable to explain quite what it was all for. And then there's a Harvard study of adult development written up by Robert Waldinger and Mark Schultz in the book The Good Life. 85 years. Hundreds of men followed from adolescence to the grave, then their wives, then their children. It's the longest study of human happiness ever conducted, and it cost a fortune. Its headline finding, after 85 years and several $1 million, is this: the quality of your relationships right now is the single best predictor of how happy and how healthy you will be at 80. It's not the salary and it's not the cholesterol, although that's obviously a factor. It's not the house, it's who you talk to, it's who phones you, it's who sits with you. 85 years of rigorous science to establish what your grandmother could have told you for nothing in a kitchen while making the tea. Here's a thought that stayed with me. A language builds words for the things its speakers actually pay attention to. And Japanese, a culture with a rather longer attention span than ours, has built quite a lot of words for very small things. Wabi sabi. Beth Kempton wrote a lovely book of that name. It's the beauty of the imperfect, the weathered, the incomplete. The chipped mug you like more than the matching set. The garden that's not quite finished. The face with lines in it. Wabi sabi says that the crack is not the flaw in the beautiful thing. The crack is the beautiful thing. Komorebi. This is my favourite word in any language. It means sunlight filtering through the leaves of trees. Isn't that lovely? That's all it means. Somewhere a long time ago, a culture looked up, saw dappled light on a path, decided that this was a thing worth naming, and it gave it a word. While we, in the same period of history, were busy building a word for upgrade. Okay, actually, I've got a different favourite Japanese word that I've come across. It's kuchisabishi, which literally translates to lonely mouth. And it describes the urge to eat, snack, chew gum, or smoke, not because you're physically hungry, but because you're bored, stressed, or feel a habit to keep your mouth busy. Your mouth is lonely. Kuchisabishi. Brilliant. Okay, I've got another word for you. Kodawari. This is a Japanese word again, and Ken Mogi writes about this in his book on Ikigai. Kodawari is the almost obsessive, entirely disproportionate care given to one small thing. The barman who takes 90 seconds over a drink that could have been poured in 20. The chef who's made the same egg the same way for 30 years and is still not satisfied. The man who takes his coffee seriously. The beans, the water, the temperature, the mug, for the 4 minutes it takes to make it. But that's precisely the point. The care is what makes it matter. Kodawari is not fussiness. Kodawari is a small thing being given the full weight of an adult human's attention and becoming, in the process, one of the best parts of the day. Which brings me to a book I could hardly leave out today, given the title of this episode. It's called The Joy of Small Things by Hannah Jane Parkinson. It began as a newspaper column, and it's essentially a catalogue. Clean bed sheets, the smell of a hardware shop, a properly made cup of tea, getting into bed you made this morning, cancelled plans. It should be a slight book, but it's not, because what she's actually done, column by column, small thing by small thing, is compile the evidence. And the evidence is overwhelming. This is what life is made of. All of it. The rest is just scenery or admin. So, worth doing once a year on a quiet Sunday with a pen, a small inventory. What this week actually gave you pleasure? Not what should have, not what cost the most, not what you posted. What did? Most people doing this exercise honestly are quite horrified. The Tuesday afternoon walk with the dog scores higher than the weekend away. The 5 minutes of laughing in the kitchen with your wife or husband scores higher than the dinner you booked 3 months in advance. The conversation in the car with the friend you've known for 30 years scores higher than the conference you flew to, none of which cost anything, none of which would impress a single person at a dinner party, all of which is the actual content of the life. The implication, if you sit with it, is uncomfortable. Most of the money, and far more importantly, most of the attention, has been spent on the things which do not, in fact, produce the thing they were bought to produce. This is a good moment, by the way, to forgive yourself. Everybody does this. The entire system is, in some sense, designed to make sure of it. You can simply stop doing it now. Kurt Vonnegut had an uncle called Alex, who complained that human beings almost never notice when they're happy. So Alex developed a habit. In the middle of some entirely ordinary moment, it was lemonade under an apple tree, nothing whatsoever happening, he would stop and say out loud, "If this isn't nice, I don't know what is." Vonnegut spent the rest of his life recommending it, and I'd go as far to say it's the single best instruction anybody's ever written on this subject. I urge you to please notice when you are happy and exclaim or murmur or think at some point, "If this isn't nice, I don't know what is." I love that. Laura Ingalls Wilder put the same idea more plainly. She said, "It is the sweet, simple things of life which are the real ones after all." And Robert Brault, who is, as far as I can tell, an American newspaper columnist rather than a philosopher, which somehow makes it better, wrote the line that people keep misattributing to everyone else. He said, "Enjoy the little things, for one day you may look back and realize they were the big things." They were the big things. They were always the big things. Got two songs for you today because they're two halves of the same argument. The first is the Housemartins' Happy Hour 1986. Four young men from Hull with the cheerful manifesto of being against very nearly everything that was popular at the time, and an album cover called London 0, Hull 4, which remains by some distance the best record title of the decade, arguably. On the surface, it's a 3-minute pop song about going to the pub after work. 2 chords, a jangly guitar, and a very young Paul Heaton sounding suspiciously delighted about the whole business. Listen again, properly. Underneath the cheerfulness, nobody in that bar is having a good time. They're performing having a good time. They're talking about cars they didn't buy and women they didn't meet. The happy hour, it turns out, is the unhappiest hour of the week. That is staged joy. The one on the schedule, the one with a name and a start time and a table booked. And the other half, as different from the first a song as you could possibly be, Louis Armstrong, What a Wonderful World. I see trees of green, red roses too. I see them bloom for me and you. And I think to myself, what a wonderful world. There's no clever twist in it, and no cynicism anywhere. It is quite simply an old man looking around at the most ordinary things imaginable and naming them one by one. Trees of green, red roses, skies of blue, and clouds of white. The faces of people going by, friends shaking hands, saying how do you do, babies who will grow and learn far more than he ever will. Now, the sharp-eared among you will have spotted that a 1967 recording is a fair old distance from the 80s and 90s. And here's the small, rather lovely reason it belongs here anyway. The song flopped in America the first time round. Almost nobody bought it. But in 1988, the very year of Big, a new generation heard it drifting over the closing scenes of Good Morning Vietnam and sent it straight back into the charts some 20 years later. A small thing, quietly noticed at last. Another great 80s film there. Go and watch it if you haven't. I may mention that film in a future episode. Armstrong had recorded it back in 1967 at 66 years old in a voice like warm gravel, with most of his life already behind him, and in an America that was at that moment angry and frightened and divided. It wasn't written by a man who had failed to notice the trouble. It was written by a man who had decided quite deliberately to look at the small things, the small good things instead, which is, once you strip away the strings, precisely the exercise I've just asked you to do, set to a melody. And that's the whole thing in 2 records. Happy Hour is what we're sold. What a Wonderful World is what actually works. One was sung by young men performing happiness in a bar they didn't want to be in, the other by an old man near the end of his life, looking at trees and sky and passing faces and shaking hands and finding them without a trace of irony wonderful. I know which one I believe. Okay, 3 things as ever. Number 1, pick a small ritual. Just one, not 3 of them. The morning coffee at the window, the first 10 minutes of a dog walk, maybe it's the entire dog walk, the Sunday afternoon nap, and then apply Kodawari to it. Take it far more seriously than it deserves. Be in the moment. Protect it as though it were the most important meeting in your week, because it is. Number 2, stop upgrading. The car's just a car. The house is the house. The phone is the phone. The next version would almost, without exception, do nothing for you that the current version's not already doing. And money you don't spend on the upgrade is money you can either get to spend on the small things, or better still, never have to earn in the first place. Number 3, at the end of each day, name one small good thing out loud, if you can manage it. To your partner, to the dog, to the cat, or to the ceiling. Not as a gratitude exercise. The wellness people have rather worn that one out, but as the daily training of the muscle that notices. Or if you prefer, borrow Uncle Alex's version, which is shorter and considerably better. If this isn't nice, I don't know what is. I think I'm going to say that every time I have a gin and tonic or a cup of tea or a nice beer. So pick a ritual, stop upgrading, name the small good thing. That, more or less, is the whole program. I got one question for you for the week, just one as ever. If everything stayed exactly the same house, same car, same job, same money, for the rest of my life, what today would I be grateful for? If the honest answer is nothing, then it's not a financial problem. It's not a circumstantial problem. It's an attention problem, because every single one of the small things is, on quiet reflection, already there, already paid for. Back to the films one last time. Big does not end with him keeping the apartment, the salary, the trampoline, or the corner office. It ends with him handing over every bit of it back, walking out into a New York street and going home. Obviously after he's got small again. Because the thing he was missing, the thing every 12-year-old in the audience could see he was missing, was not bigger. It was smaller. The bedroom, the bike, the mother, the street. And Awakenings ends with a man who would have traded every single thing you own for one ordinary Tuesday. You already have that Tuesday. Slow down. Be where you are. Walk steadily. Thank you very much for listening to episode 9 of The Steady Path. Next time, the practice that, more than any other, quietly determines how a life is actually experienced from the inside. It's called The Stories We Tell Ourselves. We'll look at why your inner monologue is often the loudest, the most opinionated, and by some margin the least reliable voice in your head, and what on earth to do about it. Until next time, slow down, think clearly, and keep walking your steady path. I'm Paul Cleworth. Thanks for listening.
Shortcuts, no turning back. Just keep moving on the track. Take the step.